Hey everybody, I'm Spencer Douglas. I'm the product specialist for Staley West, and today we're going to go through the value spreadsheet, which actually allows us to calculate a return on investment for a dew point machine. To kind of give you an intro to what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at the 4 key factors that are involved in calculating a return on investment. We realize that this machine has a lot of different benefits that will actually affect your farm operation, but specifically these 4 factors that we're going to go over today are financial key factors that will play a major part in your decision to make an investment in this equipment. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down, we're going to actually go through this spreadsheet, and we need to come up with a total number of acres that we're going to do. So on this farm operation that we're doing a value assessment on today, we're going to do a 750 acre hay farm. And we've assumed that this hay operation is going to be about 6 tons per year. And so we've got that already filled in. Our average hay price is going to be $160 a ton. We realize that this price could be much higher in some regions and potentially even a little bit lower in other regions. We feel very confident in the $160, and most customers do. So we're going to calculate based on $160 a ton hay. There are 4 major factors that we cover in this spreadsheet. The first one is added weight. The second one is added value. The third factor is the risk of crop value loss that we can experience. And the fourth one is added crop yield increases that we can experience with the dew point machine. And so we're going to take a closer look at each one of these factors, but before we do that, I want to draw your attention to the fact that based on conventional hay without a steamer, we're looking at a gross of about $720,000 of income. After expenses, a net income of about $232,500. Not a bad bottom line. So if we add the steamer in, we're going to go with this first factor. We're going to pick 7% as an average weight increase. This is a very solid number. We feel confident at Staley West that this is a realistic number that nearly every customer can achieve. And that 7% translates to about $50,400. That's a good bottom line increase just on the weight alone. The weight increase that we're factoring in here comes from the leaf retention that we're getting in the bale because of the steam. It gets better, we can add the value to the hay. So here's our second factor. And this value that we're talking about comes from consistency in the crop. It comes from color. It comes from lots of arbitrary factors that hay buyers and dairy people and even beef operations that grind hay will just decide that they like your hay because of the way it looks, and they'll pay a premium for it. And so we're going to go very conservative on this one as well, and just do $5 a ton, which means now instead of getting $160 per ton, we're going to get $165 a ton. And where our bottom line increase here before was only about $50,000, we've added an additional $25,000 to it, and now we're about to $74,000 of gross increase. Our third factor is the risk of crop loss. So there's a lot of different things that go into crop loss. There's rained on hay, there's hay that's too dry to bale, there's wind events that can actually just destroy hay and blow it all the way across the field and destroy your crop. And so any one of these 4 cuttings gives you the opportunity to experience losses. And with a steamer, we're trying to mitigate those losses, to give you the power to make a choice to actually do something that you couldn't do before. And with a steamer, you can take this rained on crop and say, how much of second cutting, because it's really rainy in our environment and second cutting, and how much are we going to add there? Well, we'll say it's about a $10,000 loss. On fourth cutting, it's miserable, it's dry, it's terrible. It's hard to put up good hay in this particular region on this farm on fourth cutting. And so we're going to say on fourth cutting, we're going to really struggle. We're going to have another $10,000 worth of losses because we're baling hay that's just too dry, but we've got to stay on schedule, so we've got to do it. So with a steamer, we're mitigating that loss. That's what we're putting in here. This is actually an increase to our bottom line, but because it's a loss that we're preventing from actually happening. Our fourth and final factor that we're looking at here on this farm operation is the potential to add crop yield to the farm. And another way to look at this is to say, how much hay can I add to the final cutting? It's not that we're adding tonnage in the first or second or third. This is a cumulative effect throughout the year that is bottom line tonnage added to the farm on that final cutting. So the typical average that we see on most farms, and especially a farm that's a little smaller like this at 750 acres, it's a little easier to manage, is about 1/4 of a ton. And that 1/4 of a ton is worth over $30,000 to this farm. That's a big deal. Well, we gain this crop yield from added growing days that we're adding to the growing cycle throughout the year by speeding up how fast we actually cut our hay, rake our hay, and bale our hay, and then turn the water back on. One of the biggest bottlenecks in farming hay, in commercial hay farming, has always been baling. We will bale 10 acres or 50 acres and say, oh, conditions aren't right, so we stop. And we wait for better conditions another day. And oftentimes that happens to farmers more than they even want to admit, because you've lived through that. I've lived through that as a hay farmer. I've lived through the process of saying, I'm gonna stop because I'm ruining my hay now instead of making high quality hay. With a steamer, we don't have that dilemma. We have the choice to actually do something about it. We give ourselves the opportunity to have this potential yield increase at the end of the year. We're talking about adding yield to the final cutting, not picking it up along the way on the previous cuttings. And that's based on growth unit days. The hay kind of stops growing and starts to slow down a little bit more in the September, October months when we're finishing the hay season. And these days that we've added in first and second and third cutting, they're not very many. It's only 1 or 2 days that you've added. But as the old saying goes, a day in July is worth a week in September. And so that added extra day that we got in June, the day that we got in July, the day that we got in August is now translating into the crop that we're harvesting in September or October. And it could be as much as 1/4 of a ton, or even as much as 1/2 a ton. If we were to do 1/2 a ton here, we're looking at double that. We're over $61,000 on just the added tonnage. This is a very powerful factor, and it's something that we kind of missed at Staley West until a customer brought it to our attention. When we first came up and developed this spreadsheet, the customer actually called us on the phone and told us that we were underselling the steamer, or selling it short because of its potential that it actually had. Something that we hadn't even factored was something that they had not just experienced, but experienced in a very big way. What the farmer actually said to me was, look, we're a 1,500 acre hay farm, and we gained an entire cutting. That's 1 ton. That was about the average of the cutting, was 1 ton. And their average hay price was, again, about the same, this $165. That was a bottom line net increase on just this factor alone of $247,500. The customer literally on the phone told me this machine paid for its entire self in the first year on that one factor alone, to say nothing of weight, value, other risks that were mitigated. He was thrilled. He was absolutely thrilled. So all of these benefits, they come at a cost. They're not for free. Or we're still stuck over here in conventional hay, right? So we've got to add the steamer to the operation to get these benefits. So what does it cost? On average, it's about $230,000 to buy a steamer, buy all the things that are needed, implemented. We're turnkey, we're in the field baling hay. You're about $230,000 out of pocket. We're gonna spread the cost of this machine over 5 years. That gives us a bottom line worst case scenario on our added cost. That's why we're assuming it's worth $0. And then the other part of that is the cost to operate the machine. There's fuel, there's water expenses involved, and that's going to get added on to here in addition to just paying off the equipment. So on this piece of equipment for 750 acres, we're looking at about $56,000 of added cost. So we take our gross increases, and these gross increases come from these three factors: the weight, the value added, the added crop yield increase, all adds up to about $105,000. We take that 105 and we subtract the $56,000 of added cost, and we come up with a bottom line net increase. In addition to that net increase, we're going to add back this $20,000 that we talked about earlier on our crop losses, and we come up with a total of $69,000 right here as our net increase. That's about 32.66%. That's a good increase. This machine is built to last for 25 years. That's our commitment at Staley West. Service, support, manuals, parts, everything. We expect these machines to live for 25 years, and you can too. And so at the end of 5 years, we're just getting started. On year 6, this added cost is going to be very different, because now we get to change this to zero. And we still have cost, right? That's the $2 a ton to operate the machine. It's about $10,000 a year. But that 56 is now gone. There's 46,000 extra dollars now that we are putting back in our pocket in year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and beyond, right? There's a lot of years of life that we can get out of the steamer. So it's important to look at this as an investment, not as something that's just a really expensive toy or a luxury that only really big farms or well-capitalized farms can have. This is a machine that when you invest in it, it will actually make you money. And the reason it makes you money is because of the benefits that it can bring. You don't get these benefits if you don't have a steamer. These benefits don't exist because they exist solely because of the steamer. The steamer gave you these choices. It gave you the power, the ability to do something that you couldn't have done otherwise, right? So when you download this spreadsheet and you take it to, your boss, your brother, your uncle, your dad, and you say, I'm going to put our numbers in here. You're going to be excited about what you see. You're going to run what-if scenarios. You're going to run the cost breakdown that says, well, what do we have to get? What's our break-even analysis? What does this machine actually have to bring to the farm to justify even spending these dollars? You know your farm, download the spreadsheet, give us a call. We're happy to help.